think can sense it right now.
To go, inbound to Weatherspoon with one. Weatherspoon puts up the three. It's no good!
The Liberty Flames are still dancing.
Fan the Flame to the biggest victory in school history.
Georgia to inbound, gets to the AC. Deep three, pull up. He baked it in! He baked it in!
Shot at the buzzer.
Good! It's good! It's good! It's Woodward!
Larry Blair reverse layup up and in, and he's fouled. Man, you talk about degree of difficulty.
With two, Georgie at the buzzer. Got it! He got it!
Darius McGee, a game for the ages.
And Liberty wins 4 games in the Big South Tournament to take home the 2013 crown. Look at Bio Baxter Bell.
25 for Colin Porter.
Holmes lead. Splash.
Shiloh Robinson with an effort play.
And Liberty keeps on coming.
A huge basket by Kyle Rode.
Got it! Pacheco with the three.
Liberty, put your dancing shoes on.
Well, hey, what's going on? Welcome into the AC of Red Basketball Podcast. Nick Kirby joined by Jon Manson. Sorry, a few technical difficulties trying to get this up and running today, but hopefully we're up and running and people can hear us out on the internet. John, my friend, how you doing?
We're doing good. I guess we don't do this often enough, so when we get on here, we have a little technical snafu, and we started 7 or 8 minutes late. But hey, it's all good. Flames are 10-0 in conference play and got a 12-game winning streak.
Yeah, nothing could bring us down today, for sure. Before we get into it, as always, the AC of Red Basketball Podcast and everything on AC of Red brought to you by Jason Porter Real Estate, covering all your residential and commercial real estate needs in Lynchburg and beyond. I've listened to a lot of games on the radio lately, and kind of gone back and watched what I can on TV. And Jason does an awesome job on the call. Alan York, I tell you what, though. Alan York, man, this guy is an incredible play-by-play guy. So I've listened to a little more on radio lately. Those guys both do a great job. And, of course, Jason Porter just does great work. I know handles everything you could possibly need with everything you need for real estate. So be sure to check him out. You can find his socials up there at the top. Google Jason Porter Real Estate. You'll get you where you need to go.
You know what's kind of cool, Nick, is one of the games a couple weeks ago, somebody came up and introduced himself to me and told me he's a big fan of AC of Red and the podcast and everything, and mentioned that he's moving to Lynchburg and is using Jason Porter for his real estate needs. So that's kind of cool.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, you too. You can join in on the fun and get taken care of. And good time to head to Lynchburg because they got a pretty good basketball team that we're going to talk about tonight. John, you were down in Murfreesboro, Tennessee for the game against Middle Tennessee State. John, I thought this was one of the more impressive wins that I can remember. Because it felt like, at least watching on TV, man, it felt like McDevitt, he really wanted it. I felt like they came out, man. They were, Liberty's that hunted team. They were given all they have, and Liberty just absolutely dominated that game. What was your takeaways?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, my brother lives and his family lives in town there in Murfreesboro. So even in spite of the weather, was able to make it work. And, I thought it was the reason why I tried to get to that game is I thought it was going to be the one of the tougher games on the road and in conference play. And Liberty just played amazing. The team played really well in the first half on defense in the opening minutes. I think Middle Tennessee missed their first, 9 field goals. They missed their first 8 or 9 3-point attempts. And meanwhile, on the other end of the court, Cade Matheny just couldn't miss. It was a sight to behold. And, like you said, it was one of the more impressive wins Liberty's had during this win streak. I mean, you go back to the Dayton win. I'm not sure Liberty will be able to top that during the regular season this year. But this one would be right in that ballpark.
Yeah, just a dominant force. And when Katie Matheny's on like that, good luck, trying to stop this team. Another one of my big takeaways, just watching this team of late, John, is we take Zach Cleveland for granted. The fact that we have continued to get this guy to come back to Liberty to play here. I mean, he makes the game so easy for everyone else around him. Every night he's on triple-double watch. I mean, it just 9 assists for your biggest guy on the floor, your biggest guy in the starting lineup, and that's just commonplace.
Yeah, it really is. He's so much fun to watch. I mean, we can sit here and critique his shooting ability, and he has been a lot better from the free throw line, shooting over 60% the last 5 or 6 games. But it doesn't matter. Like, he's still that good of a player. He kind of, I was kind of having a conversation earlier this week about Zach and kind of like where he ranks among, Liberty's greatest players of all time. And I think he's got to be in that list. And, that list has gotten so much longer and deeper in the last handful of years. But I kind of was comparing him in my mind to Jesse Sanders, a similar type player. Obviously, Jesse was your true point guard, 6'3". Didn't have a great shot. He could shoot from 3, but that's not really what he was known for. He is the last guy to get a triple-double in Liberty uniform. Did it 4 times over his 4 years, once each of his 4 seasons at Liberty. Both of those players are going to end up. Jesse already, he's a leading assist man. He's in the top 3 or 4 of the rebound list all time, and he's a 1,200-point scorer. Zach's going to end up with very similar numbers. He's already in the top 5 in assists, top 5 in rebounds, or will be there by the end of his career, and he'll probably end up with over 1,200 points. So kind of similar type of games to some degree. But Zach, I mean, I'm sure you saw, and most of you watching have seen the highlight video going viral about him and just his ability to play and just his athletic ability really jumps off the film when you're watching that, because we see it, but I think, like you said, we take it for granted. But man, he's I was watching a podcast that kind of was calling him out and said a non-Liberty way words about Zach Cleveland and just his ability to attack the rim with a vengeance. And he's a lot of fun to watch. The other thing I'll say, Nick, about being at the game at Middle Tennessee, and maybe it's Blue Raider fans, I don't know. I've been to other road games. Last year was at Kennesaw and Jack State, but I didn't notice it as much as I did at the Middle Tennessee game. Like, when you watch, and we know this, but when you watch Liberty and the two teams warming up pregame, like, Liberty's got a bunch of white kids, looks like me and you out there, with a few exceptions, obviously, but they don't look overly athletic, we don't win the game getting off the bus. We've talked about this over the past 2 or 3, 4 years. And then you look at Middle Tennessee, and they got some athletes, 6'4", 6'7", 6'8" guys, long, athletic looking kids, just big and athletic. And you're just sitting there thinking, man, if you're a casual Middle Tennessee basketball fan, you're probably showing up thinking, you maybe don't know Liberty's 10-0 or 9-0 at the time in conference play. And you're like, man, we should win this game. And then they just were the fan base, the crowd was just so frustrated watching the game. And I think they were just letting it pour out into their voicing their frustrations at the refs. Like, it was a ref's fault that Cade Matheny was 6 of 6 from 3 and they couldn't slow down the Liberty offense. But I feel like that happens more than not. And I'm sure some of the players are probably like looking across at like a guy like Caden. I mean, again, 5'10", doesn't look overly athletic. Not the fastest, quickest player. Not that he's slow by any stretch, but they're probably like, oh, man, I can check this guy. And then you can't. And he seems to always find a way to get that 2 inches of space or 2 feet of space or whatever it is he needs, whether it's a 3 or like we saw in the second half, they were extending out on him beyond the 3-point line, and he could beat him to the bucket for a layup, and did that several times, and ended up having 29 points, tying his career high. Did not have a 3-pointer in the second half. But I just feel like it's got to be so frustrating for some of these opposing teams, opposing coaches, opposing fan bases, for their home games, Liberty's road games. But it's a lot of fun for us as Liberty fans.
Yeah, it's funny that what you said about Liberty, because you obviously here, my day job, we cover Cincinnati sports, and Miami of Ohio falls in our region, and it's a very similar thing. With them in Arizona, the only two undefeated teams left. That they're a team that has a bunch of white guys. They come off the bus, and I think people are like, how to do it, but they play very similar. I mean, Miami has a great offense, just like Liberty does, can shoot the three really well. And they also play a pack line defense too, which is fun enough. But it kind of leads me to my next thought, and I think kind of after that NC State game, if we would have even mentioned something like this, we would have been ran out of podcasting or whatever. But I don't know, John. I think it's very unlikely this Liberty team runs the table, and that's not like a knock on this Liberty team. I just think it's really hard to run the table in a top 10 conference. I think Ken Palm only gives them a 5.2% chance. I don't know if that's including the tournament or not, but nonetheless, it's still below. It's in the single digits, I'm sure. But if this team was to run the table, I think you start getting into the at-large conversation. You'd only have 3 losses all year. Am I crazy? Is that something that you think is realistic?
Well, I mean, Liberty's currently 18-3 with 10 regular season games left. So if you were to win out, you're 28-3, going to the conference tournament. Assume you win 2 and lose in the conference championship, you're 30-4. I think Liberty would be in the conversation. I think they would be listed as a bubble team, but I just have a hard time thinking that Liberty would get the benefit of the doubt. They the resume would start to get picked apart. You look at the losses like to Towson, really doesn't look that good. A 40-point loss to an NC State team on the road. Really, obviously your only high major team you played or Power 4 team, if depending on how you classify Dayton. I don't think there's enough good wins. There's no quad 1 wins currently. Dayton's lost a few recently, so that fell down to a quad 2. I think Liberty would be mentioned in the bubble. I don't think Liberty would make the tournament as an at-large. But like you said, I don't know. First of all, it's crazy that we're having this conversation. I think I could go a lot of different ways with it, but I think like if the NC State game was like a 12-point loss, for example, and you were competitive in there and kind of got away from you late, and then I think if you would have held on and beaten Towson, which we really should have won that game. I mean, we led a lot of the way, but if you could have, had those 2 outcomes, so now you're sitting here with 2 losses, and then you went out, I think you have a good better shot. Here's a comment here from our guy Dan. What's the ceiling as far as net? Would probably need to be around 50. And Nick, you could probably remember, was it Darius's senior year that we talked about? It might be the greatest Liberty basketball team of all time, and it's the highest rated team of all time in the season in net and in KenPom, and we were a top 40 going into the conference tournament and maybe the conference championship game against Kennesaw before we lost. And I don't think we really even sniffed the bubble that year. And our net currently we're in the 70s. My last check, which I think was this weekend.
74. I have it up right
74,
now.
74. So I don't think that's good enough. I mean, so what's the ceiling as far as net? Like, I mean, if we were to win out, just a couple of weeks ago, we were in the 90s. And we kind of hovered around there. Now, a lot of it is based on your margin of victory. So, like Liberty was only favored by 1 or 2 points in Vegas, and then also in the computer models for the Middle Tennessee win. Then you go and win that by 15 or 16. That's how you bump up 10 spots. So you got to beat your projections in point spread, but not just win. Some of these you'll have to win convincingly. And so, I mean, you got to get up there. I think if you got into the top 50, that would help your case as well. But again, I just feel like that loss against NC State, if we were in that situation, I think that would just get picked apart. And, the committee would not overlook that loss, especially when you're looking at some of these other bubble teams who may be 500 in their league, but they have 4 quad 1 wins. And Liberty had 1 quad 1 opportunity and lost by 40 in that opportunity.
Yeah, I think you probably would need Dayton and Florida Atlantic to get hot. I don't know where Florida Atlantic is. Florida Atlantic's 110 in Ken Palm. Dayton's 88. I think if those teams got hot, I think it makes it a little interesting. I guess my thought to the committee is, if Liberty runs the table, you really think that these bubble teams would have run the table in Conference USA? I just refuse to believe that. I refuse to believe that. I don't even know who's on the bubble right now, but it was Ohio State or one of those. Like, are they really going to run? They're going to win every single one of these games. Like, do you know how hard it is to go, travel across the country and play at New Mexico State and UTEP? And that is a whole nother discussion. But it just, with the disadvantages that these teams have, and it's not Rich McKay. All these mid-major coaches keep coming out and saying, like, no one will schedule us. If we're a good team, no one's going to give us a good game except for Will Wade. He's like the one outlier, and maybe we don't take him up on that next time. I don't think that can happen. Hopefully, it's not a it's nothing we have to worry about. Hopefully, you win the conference tournament. But I am looking at bracket matrix, John, and there's only like 3 teams ahead of us between us and an at-large spot. So I don't know. The net's weird because Indiana State was 29th in the net, and they missed the tournament. They didn't get selected. It feels like the net, they use it when they want to use it, and they don't. It feels like they use the net more for seeding than actual in or out. So it's anyone's guess. But I don't know. If this team runs the table, I have some massive qualms if they didn't get selected, if they lost a tough game in the championship.
Yeah, and some of that might be like if, like a Sam Houston, for example, who I think has won 5 or 6 in a row, and they're, the second highest ranked team in Ken Palm and in net in Conference USA. What if they won out? I think Liberty and Sam Houston play each other in the regular season finale at Liberty Arena. Like if they were to win out and their net also rises into the top 70 or 65, and maybe that, win we had at Sam Houston turns into a quad 1 win. I mean, that's another thing that could play into the factor as well, because that, if you go back to remember the Lipscomb team back in 2019, there was talks of them being on the bubble. But I think a lot of that had to do with Liberty and what Liberty had done. So that loss to Liberty in the conference championship game wasn't a bad loss for them. So I think that plays into it too. What I think probably comes into play more than if Liberty can get an at-large, if they win out or go 19-1 or something absurd like that in Conference USA play, is can Liberty get to that 11 line? Like, I think there's a possibility, there's a path. I think Miami, Ohio is one of those teams that's like an 11 seed right now on some of these projections, maybe in bracket matrix as well too. But if you can get to an 11 line, which again, I think, the odds of that happening are not great, but I think there is a chance if you go 19-1 or 20-0 and then win the tournament. And if you get to an 11 line, you play a 6 seed, like that's a huge difference in being in that 12-5. And the 12-5 is a huge difference from being in a 13-4. Every seed line you go up in that range, you significantly increase your odds of getting a first round win.
Yeah. Miami's in 11 right now, and like I said, that's according to bracket matrix, 3 teams ahead. I don't know what the gap is. So the teams ahead are Yale, Belmont, and Tulsa. Liberty's the last 12 right now. I don't know how big the gap between Tulsa and San Diego State, who's like that cutoff. I don't know if there would be more teams that would be in between those, because you have to have the cutoff at some point. But nonetheless, it's an interesting conversation. We'll, obviously you have to keep winning for it to be a conversation. But if they get there, we'll see. It's just, you're going to tell me Virginia Tech on the bubble, a team that has lost 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 out of their last 8 games, that they're going to run the table in Conference USA. I don't believe it. I don't think they would. But we can move on. Maybe the most fascinating news that I think kind of came, I don't know, John, I think it kind of came out of nowhere about a couple weeks ago now. Isaiah Eden could potentially return. How realistic is this?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of crazy because, Coach McKay, was it December? I think that, I asked him one of those non-D1 games. I went to the game with the sole intention of talking to McKay after the game about Isaiah Enan and his injury that I'd heard rumblings of him having happened in practice. And, he told me that, said in that press conference, he was out for the season. Well, then all of a sudden, what was it, 2 or 3 weeks ago, I'm sitting at Liberty Arena and someone says, "Oh, look, is that Isaiah Enan down there warming up?" Yeah, he was in his uniform warming up, and he has every game since then. And at Middle Tennessee, you can go back and look on ASOR Red on Twitter or X if you're on there. I posted a video of him where the team he was out there for the layup lines and all that, the pregame shoot around and that sort of thing. Well, then the team went back into the locker room like they always do with 15 minutes or so left on the clock before the game started. And Isaiah stayed out there, and he was working with some of the assistant coaches, grad assistants, and training staff. And he had a brace on his knee. The first time I had seen him on the court with a brace on his knee, which Coach McKay said that was one of the things he had to get to be cleared to play, was to have a brace on his knee. And I mean, they were working him pretty hard. And then, when the team came back out there with 2 minutes left, I saw Isaiah stayed out the entire time. He went over and was talking to McKay on the sideline, and kind of you could see with his hand motions and things that he was talking about how his knee was holding up during that pregame little stress test or whatever it was that he went through. And I'd gone to that tournament in Orlando, the ESPN Event Invitational, and it felt like Isaiah was only about a couple weeks out, maybe 10 to 14 days out from a return then, from what I was hearing. And he did the same exact thing. The team would go back into the locker room and he would stay out there, really working it hard with the trainers and whatnot, and stay out there for those last 5 or 6 minutes, before the game started. So I don't know. I think, first of all, hats off to Isaiah Enan for wanting to do this. He obviously bypassed surgery on his torn ACL to try to give it one more go. So I hope for his sake he can figure out a way to get onto the court and to be cleared. I'm assuming this is going to be his last chance. He has more eligibility remaining, but I'm assuming if this is what he's doing, he's going to be give it one more shot. So I hope he's able to. I think we need to temper our expectations. Like, I think we're still, at least a week or two at the minimum away from him, being cleared. And I don't think you can expect him to be the Isaiah Enan we saw pre-injury last year, because he's now torn his ACL twice since then. He would be playing with a torn ACL. It must be a slightly torn ACL is my guess. But again, if you can get somebody with his size, his length, and his athleticism, at least what he had pre-injuries, I mean, it could be a game changer. But again, I think we need to temper expectations. We also need to, he's not going to come in and be a starter and play 30 minutes a game. Like, you're hoping to get 8 minutes out of him, which could be huge, especially when you talk about, the lack of depth that we have on the team right now, especially in the front court.
Yeah, and it's tough too. Like, you're trying to work a guy in late in the season, into your rotation, especially for a player who's only what has he played, like 9 games total in a Liberty uniform in his career. So it's interesting. Yeah, credit to him for working his tail off to even have a chance at coming back. But that'll certainly be something that we watch. John, I try to watch as much Conference USA basketball as I can. I think this league is crazy. Like, you never know. I mean, like, maybe more so than any season, it feels like who is good and who's bad. It depends on the night. Liberty's got Delaware coming up next. Delaware is a team that has a struggle for the most part. They are, I believe, the worst team in KenPom, but then they out of nowhere last week go on the road and win at New Mexico State, which I think is probably one of the toughest road games to win, just because of kind of where they're at, and they're just a tough, gritty team. And the wild thing about this Delaware team, I don't know if you know this, John, they lost to New Mexico on their home court by 29 points, and then literally 11 days later go win by 9 points at New Mexico State. So this Delaware team, who knows what to expect out of them? I feel pretty confident, but it is on the road, and it's the first time you've ever played in this gym. And then after that is another really just testing Missouri State, a team that I've been impressed with when I've watched them. I think that they're going to be one of those sneaky teams that if there's a team that's not, like the Sam Houston or Liberty, I think who's kind of separated themselves, they kind of sneak up and win the Conference tournament. I think it might be Missouri State.
Yeah, touching on Delaware first, like their win at New Mexico State, I'm not sure if that says more about Delaware or the state of the Aggies right now. I mean, they've lost 4 straight, including 3 straight at home. So, but yeah, I mean, I was shocked that they won that game. I would have, I think I actually did put a few dollars on New Mexico State to win, but that didn't happen. So there you go. There's your don't bet Conference USA basketball plug. But yeah, I mean, I think the interesting thing with Delaware and every game remaining in the regular season, with the exception of Missouri State, because that'll be the first time we played them, is you're going into playing these teams for the second time. So they all know and have been preparing all season, and certainly in conference season, to beat Liberty, because they know that's what stands between them, whoever they are, the rest of Conference USA, and a conference championship. So I'm sure they all gave it their best shot the first go around. Clearly didn't work. So what are they going to do to change things up the second go around as teams continually try to give Liberty different looks and to slow them down? I think Delaware, what they did the first time, just what was that? Just 2 games ago for Liberty. They kind of played the matchup zone and slowed the game down, shortened the game. It kind of got Liberty out of its rhythm. I think it was our lowest
ugly game.
Yeah, it really was. I think it was our lowest scoring output against a Division I team this season. Well, that's not true. It's NC State would have been worse, but it was up there, second or third lowest against an opponent this season. So, it'll be interesting to see. I think both of those 2 teams, I had this in my pregame preview last time, 8 of the top 10 minute played per game guys in Conference USA are on the 2 teams. Christian Bliss plays over 39 minutes a game, which is just unheard of. So we'll see. I agree with you about Missouri State. I think they have a chance to be a really tough out. I'm interested how Liberty matches up with them. They've got 2 senior forwards. I've watched some of them as well too. Been impressed with them. Quanzo Martin, is that how you say his first name?
Conzo. I literally had Googled how to pronounce his name 10 seconds ago.
Conzo Martin. He was at Missouri when Liberty played. He was their head coach when they came to Liberty Arena a couple years ago. So he's familiar at least with getting to Lynchburg and making that trip from Missouri. But they seem to have things going. And like I said, they got those 2 senior forwards. One's a 6'9" guy who's averaging 17 points a game or something. They got another guy who's reminiscent of like a Charles Barkley type player. He's 6'4", but he's 6'4" wide as well, and he's athletic too, and he also similar to like a Mayo Baxter Bell, similar type body build. But this guy he's legit. I forget his name. It's like a hyphenated last name is all I can think of. Micah.
He's a second. He's second on KenPom Player of the Year, I think.
Yeah, well, he's in the top 5. I think the Mustafa from Jack State is second. Last I looked, I could be wrong, but yeah, you're right. So I think Missouri State could be a tough out, could be a tough matchup for Liberty. And that game is this Saturday at Liberty Arena on CBS Sports Network. I think it's a 2:00 tip. So if you're in the area, be sure to come on out and support the team. And it should be a good test. And it's the last game, like I said, it's the last game left in the regular season where Liberty hasn't faced the team at least once already.
Yeah, I was going to mention, Conzo Martin. That was his last year at Missouri. I don't know who schedules that game to go on the road, and they get spanked and he gets fired at the end of the year. So he might have a little bit of a grudge coming back to play Liberty in that one. And then after that, it's you have that, two teams that I don't think are playing very well right now in New Mexico State and UTEP, but it's such a tough road trip having to play those two back to back. And then you just have the wild cards. FIU, what are you going to get out of them? They've kind of been definitely a hit or miss team. And then it's kind of the old standards, Western Kentucky, Kennesaw, Jacksonville State, Louisiana Tech, who's really struggling. And then, Sam Houston State's, I think, the biggest surprise. I think we had mentioned this when they played Liberty early in the season. I had mentioned that, man, the Sam Houston State, they keep having these metrics that are way better than the results, and it looks like it's finally starting to break their way where they've won 6 in a row.
They haven't lost since they played us.
Yeah, the metrics are finally catching up with Sam Houston, and they play well on Wednesday night against UTEP. They'll be a top 100 team if they beat UTEP by 20 plus points. They're 14-point favorites at home against UTEP. But Sam Houston, that'll be an interesting. It'll be interesting to see kind of. I don't think that game's going to matter much, unless Liberty's undefeated.
Yeah, I mean, well, and the other thing is, like, at what point does Liberty clinch the regular season title and number 1 seed? Which, again, you want to win a regular season title, but the number 1 seed doesn't really matter too much. I mean, if you're the 1 or the 2 seed, you get a first round bye, and then you also get the day off in between the quarters and the semis. Liberty could clinch it here. I mean, they got a 4-game lead on everybody right now, and they are at least going to be tied. Because they've already beaten everybody except for Missouri State. So if you start beating these teams again, like a Sam Houston, they already won on the road. So you're going to have the tiebreaker as well, too. I mean, Valentine's Day, Liberty could have this thing wrapped up. But I think FIU, you mentioned them. I think they're a team that's been a lot better at home than they have been away from home. They've struggled here recently, but I think they've had several games on the road. So you kind of feel good, especially after they gave Liberty everything that the Flames won it back at the end of December in that conference opener and went to overtime. Liberty would be ready for that game and also playing it at home. If we're talking about, like, where the odds Liberty goes undefeated in conference play, and obviously you got to take it day by day, game by game. It's that road trip to Kennesaw and Jack State. That seems like the one that jumps out. UTEP and Mexico State, too, like you said, is a tough road trip going halfway across the country. But Liberty's had some success there, especially last year on that trip. So it's the Jack State and Kennesaw game. I mean, Jack State has really surprised me. I didn't think they were going to be a legit CUSA contender, especially after their non-conference. But they've turned it on here really since conference play began. And they've always kind of had Liberty's number a little bit, and being able to pick up some wins against the Flames, beat us down there last year in Alabama. And then Kennesaw, it's a little bit of a rivalry there, obviously, and had some good games, competitive games against them too. So those are kind of the games that I'd be looking at as far as, like, if you're, trying to put a handicap on which are the toughest games remaining, I would say it would be those two road games, that road trip, kind of late in the season.
Is Cottle suspended for the year?
So they suspended him indefinitely. Obviously, he was caught up in that gambling ring. He, fixing games, point shaving. They've announced him suspended indefinitely. I'd assume he's done for the year unless there's some judgment in that case here soon that clears him of all wrongdoing. But it's hard to imagine that's going to happen here in the next 6 weeks. So I would think he's probably played his last basketball for the Owls.
To their credit, they've won some games without him. Just beat Western Kentucky and New Mexico State. I think he's been on 5 games now. So the Kennesaw will always certainly be tough. My last kind of thought, and John, you're certainly welcome to mention anything else. It feels like Brett Decker has played really well. Like his efficiency numbers are through the roof. But it kind of feels like there's a next level with him, and that's kind of what I'm waiting to see. Kind of if he can, kind of have some of these Caden Matheny type games. It kind of feels like that might be the one thing that might be the biggest upside still that Liberty has that we haven't seen yet.
Yeah, I think, he's the one guy that you kind of leave out a lot of times, and we shouldn't. I mean, he's the team's leading scorer. But when you just sit here and talk about a Cade Matheny, a Zach Cleveland, a Colin Porter, those three guys have been, the backbone of Liberty basketball the last 3 to 4 years. And then you add in a JJ Harper, and he's an experienced veteran guy, and also a Josh Smith. But Decker's really his ability to he honestly had this conversation with somebody recently too, was like, as far as maybe we shouldn't talk about this publicly, but as far as games that could translate to the next level, whatever that level may be, if you're talking about a high major or professionally, feels like his game most easily translates or could translate. Just, he's a bigger guard, 6'3", 6'4". He can shoot it as well as anyone. I mean, I think last check he was second in the country at 3-point percentage. He's still over 50%. He's been there all season. But he can also finish at the rim. I mean, we've seen him throw some down in traffic. He's got a nice little floater game when he gets into the paint. He's able to take some contact and finish, and he's improving a lot on the defensive end of the floor. So one thing that I like your take on, Nick, is I think this is arguably the best offensive basketball team Liberty's ever had. And if you're a Conference USA team, I don't know how you can try to stop this team. You just have to hope that Liberty, has a bad night shooting. But even at that, Liberty's had poor night shooting in conference play previously and still found a way, whether it was a JJ Harper 20-point night or a Zach Cleveland 20-point night. It just seems like, when you've got a Colin Porter who's shooting over 40% from three, Brett Decker shooting over 50% from three. We know what Caden can do from long range. You also got Zach and his ability to distribute and also play in the paint with his back to the basket. And then you got a JJ Harper who it's so easy for us to forget about as, the team's fifth option, if you want to say that. But he's shown his ability. I mean, he averaged, close to 20 points a game at the D2 ranks, and he scored 20 points on a time or two for the Flames. So I just don't know how you can try to stop this Liberty team, the Liberty offense. They're just so dynamic, have so many weapons. It's not like previous Liberty teams or previous really good or other really good college basketball teams where it's like if you take this one thing away from them or one player away from them, you can find a way to slow them down or stop them. I just don't know. Again, I'm not saying Liberty's going to win every game and going to score 80 points every night. That's obviously not going to happen. But I just don't know if you're an opposing Conference USA coach, how you try to game plan to stop this Liberty team. I don't know what you do.
Yeah, Liberty's 8th in the country in 2-point percentage, so they can certainly score around the rim as well. I think a lot of that is because of the 3-point. But you saw Middle Tennessee. I think at halftime they made like a crazy adjustment. They're like, we're gonna really try to close out on the shooters. We're gonna try to take the three away, and it feels like Liberty is getting even smarter. And again, teams can counterpunch and someone can figure out a way to kind of take it back. But it feels like Liberty is of late, especially in that game against Middle Tennessee State, they're finding ways when teams try to take away the three to just really burn them. It feels like they're getting maybe a little bit more creative with that. Again, I'm not an X and O's guys. I don't know exactly what they're doing, but I know the efficiency numbers are crazy around the rim, and I definitely saw, they really made Middle Tennessee pay. So. That's the thing, and this team just doesn't turn the ball over. I think they're top 10 in the country in turnover percentage. And just remember, just a couple of years ago, that was like our biggest problem. And that team was sub 100. We had 2022. This team was 146th in turnover percentage, and now they're 10th in the country. So yeah, they're tough. They're tough to beat. I do sometimes wonder. This is one thing I'd be curious to ask Richie McKay on, because I watch this team, and I totally understand the pack line and the whole you don't go for offensive rebounds because you don't want to take a transition. But a team that shoots as many threes as Liberty, I kind of would be just curious. What if they kind of switched it up and tried to get more offensive rebounds? Because it feels like every time they do get an offensive rebound, which isn't a lot, it feels like almost every time they get a great look at the result of it.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. And I think it's so antithesis to anything Coach McKay has done the last 10 or 11 years since he's been back at Liberty. I just don't know if he even knows how to coach that.
Yeah.
But it's a good point. This team has just been a lot of fun to watch. And, thinking back to our last conversation, our last, point there about one of the best basketball offensive teams that we've ever seen at Liberty. I was watching the Nick McDevitt post-game press conference at Middle Tennessee after the game against Liberty just last week, and he had a really good point. And you always try to watch and listen to what some of these opposing coaches say, because you can get a little bit more insight into Liberty team, from somebody that knows more basketball than I do. And what he said is like, and it's similar to what we've heard from every coach that I've talked to or heard talk about Liberty, except for Will Wade. Talk about just the experience of this team and how that pays off for the Flames in so many small ways that to even myself, you don't really see it. And maybe as a Liberty fan, we don't see it as much as well either. Just he was talking about how how they'll hedge against a ball screen, the defense, and Liberty can see immediately when it happens. They know both players, whoever is the ball handler and whoever is the guy who's doing the screener, knows exactly how the defense is playing them, and based off of how the defense is playing them, how they need to react. Whether it's a roll to the bucket, whether it's a step back three, whatever the case may be, and it's just a split second. And he was talking about how his team might take them a split second to react and to understand and recognize what Liberty is seeing and what Liberty is doing. Liberty's already that step ahead. And I think that just comes from, Caden, Colin, and Zach, starting with those three. I mean, those three guys, I'll have to go back and look before the season's over. They've played, over 100 games of basketball together. Colin and Zach even more so. So they just know each other. It's like you talk about like having that effect with your like a twin. Like you just know where they are and how they're feeling and how they're thinking. I think Liberty basketball is starting to have that with this team. And also when add in Decker and JJ Harper now. I mean, those guys are on the floor for 30 plus minutes a game for 21 games now. So they're also getting looped into that. And I said it maybe our first podcast this season, we just got to really enjoy and appreciate this team for what it is, the program Coach McKay's built, and how special this big three is. Just because we might not ever see something like that again in Liberty basketball uniforms. And it's not something, and that's not unique to Liberty. I mean, no team in the country, I don't care if you're Duke or Coppin State at the bottom of things in D1, you just don't keep your teams around for multiple seasons. And, Liberty's done it. And so far they've been the benefactors.
All right, so I got to quantify it a little bit. At the beginning, you said best offensive team ever. It's kind of crazy. So this team ranks 55th in adjusted offensive efficiency, which we deem is probably the best way to overall. The 2023 team, also 55th, exactly. The 2019 team was 54th. So, they're right there. Now, I did a little more digging, because I wasn't just going to be just satisfied with just that answer, because I was thinking, I wonder how much that NC State game has inflated or actually deflated these numbers. So Site Torvik, that basically is the same thing as KenPom, reverse engineered it, but gives us more flexibility in terms of what we look at. Allows you to just only look at conference games. And Liberty ranks 37th in conference games in offensive efficiency. So past that NC State game, not including that. The 2023 team played in the ASON, ranked 80th in conference. So they actually boosted their numbers in the non-conference that year, because this is the adjusted offensive efficiency is factoring in the level of competition. So they're right there with those two teams, but at least in conference play, and I could dig through years and years of data, they might be, of the last 10 games, might be the best offensive team we've seen. We'll see how it shakes out, and I have a feeling they're going to have another one of these Delaware games. Just someone in Conference USA is going to be able to, just make the game ugly. And the question will be: is Liberty able to answer that challenge again when that happens? I think probably see one or two more of those. I think Jacksonville State, when you play them again, you always just kind of expect one of those muddy games with them. That's a good question. I'll read it here, John, and I'll ask you first. Good question here. Thanks for tuning in. Was NC State that much better than us, or we just have an off night? I was there, and literally nothing was falling from three that game. What do you think, John?
That game, I try not to think about it because having lost that game, we lost 3 out of 4. The losses to Towson and Bradley were kind of gut punches a little bit because I thought we were – so much better than what we showed in those 2 games. And then that loss there, it was an embarrassing loss. I think it's fair to say. I mean, it was embarrassing. And again, I thought we were a lot better than that. I think there's a couple things to it. I think 1, we had a bad night. I think 2, NC State, Coach Will Wade, I've been following them a little bit this season. Mainly due to us playing them. They were at that time, and still it was a very critical time for them. He's trying to get them to the next level so they can play for get into the NCAA tournament conversation, which they're probably on the good side of the bubble right now. But again, they're a bubble type team, so he's got to get the most out of them. They played, he said it that day in the post-game press conference, they played their best game of the season to the point at that time. So you had 1, Liberty had a bad night. 2, NC State had a good night. Plus, it just was a bad matchup for us too. Kind of similar to the Oregon game last year, where their strength played right into our weaknesses. I mean, they had size, length, athleticism, quickness, from in their backcourt all the way to their front court. So they were just able to take advantage of that. And, where we're able to be better than the Conference USA teams, again, those 6'4" guards, 6'7" wings at the ACC level are just that much better. Their closeouts are that much quicker, and it just makes it that much more difficult to get a shot. So I don't know. I mean, hopefully, and hopefully we'll get another crack at a team at that level, or maybe even better when we get to the NCAA tournament, if we get to the NCAA tournament. But I feel like if we played that game 10 times, we might not beat them, maybe once, but I don't think we would lose by 40 again.
Yeah, I mean, UNC Asheville only lost by 12 to them. It's it was a game that snowballed. Zach Cleveland did not score in that game. Had 6 turnovers. He just had, and Liberty goes as Zach Cleveland goes, not necessarily scoring wise, but he dictates the offense. I mean, kind of everything works through him, and he had an off night. Josh Smith also wasn't really, I don't feel acclimated yet at that point, where he's kind of that second, big guy that can, shoulder some of that load. And when you just really, you don't really have another big guy, it's tough in that game. So yeah, I do. I think if Liberty played them 10 times, I think Liberty wins at least once. I really do. But it's just one of those games where it snowballed on you. Unfortunately, Liberty's had 2 of those games, the last 2, I guess, power conference games you played. But we've seen Liberty beat power conference teams with Darius McGee in the lineup. So I don't think there's they have no chance in these games, but these games are probably always going to be games where you maybe have a 20-25% chance of winning anyways.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. And I think, probably the players, they put a lot of pressure on themselves in that game, just, knowing it's your only chance to really make a statement nationally. And hopefully when they get to the NCAA tournament, they won't have that pressure. If we get to the tournament, I should say, They won't have that same type of pressure on themselves. Just play freely. I think that's what we've seen a lot since then, and maybe we needed that loss, that humiliating loss. And I wrote about this in an article, a week or two ago about it. But maybe we needed that to kind of recenter the team as far as like, okay, let's get back to the basics and what our end goal is. And I asked Caden about it not too long after the Middle Tennessee game. I asked him, like, how does this team ride in a 12-game winning streak, sitting at 10-0? Everybody's talking about how great they are and are they the best team ever, best offensive team ever, all this stuff. How can they get an at-large bid? Can they get an 11 seed? All this stuff. How do you block that out and focus on getting better each and every game? Because ultimately it is going to come down to Huntsville. To get to have a successful season, what we would quantify as a successful season. And I really thought his answer, which I hope it's not just words, I hope it's really the truth, was like, you got so many players on this team that are playing their last year of college basketball. Caden, Zach, Colin, JJ, Josh Smith, likely Isaiah Enan, even some of the others like a Xander Yates. There may be another one or two I'm forgetting, but the bulk of this team is at the end of their college career. And Caden said, I'm only guaranteed 10 more games. So I'm not going to take it for granted. Like I'm going to value every possession. I'm going to value every game. I'm going to value every practice because this is all I got left. So I think we've seen some of that here during this win streak. And I'm hopeful, like I said, that is true and that carries through the rest of the season. Because, I think this team has the potential. I think we all think that this team has the potential to do something special. They've already done something special, but again, you're remembered for what you do in February and ultimately March. So I think they have a chance to really do something special that will remember them forever.
Yeah, well said. Well said, John. Well, this has been a lot of fun, my friend. We'll keep seeing how the season shakes out. Obviously, 10-0, favored in every single game. The rest of the way, 82% chance of winning on the road at Delaware, then 83 on Saturday against Missouri State. So there's a pretty good chance they at least get to 12-0. Then they go to that New Mexico State with just good luck figuring out what New Mexico State team will show up, but. You get through that, and then you have a couple home games after FIU and Western Kentucky. It gets interesting. So we'll kind of see how it shakes out. And, enjoyed doing this with you, John.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun, Nick. And obviously Joel Vanderpool he's still with us, or so he says. He seems to have a conflict every time. But I hope we get him back on with us soon. And hopefully we can do this a couple more times before we get to Huntsville. But it's a lot of fun. Let's enjoy this team this season. And a couple of things I've been watching is, the longest win streaks, active win streaks in college basketball. I think Liberty's at 6 currently. Also the longest win streaks in school history, 14 would be that mark. So
wow.
that was that 2019-2020 team that started the year 14-0 before losing to Will Wade and LSU and also started 19-1. And the best start through 22 games, not to keep throwing stats out here, but 19-3. So
okay.
we're at 18-3. So we can tie that mark. But that 2020 team, they were 24-3. Let me pull it up real quick. So, we would have to win 27-3. So we're sitting here at 18-3. We would have to win 9 more games to tie that start through, 30 games. So just shows you how good that team was. Now, granted, I was playing in the ASON, which I think we would all agree Conference USA is better, and the numbers say that as well too. But a lot of impressive streaks that Liberty's pushing up against.
I wonder if it's the longest conference win streak of all time.
I actually, we're on the same wavelength. I text Bill Smith, Liberty SID, 5 minutes before we got on the pod. Liberty's won 15 straight conference games.
No way.
10 straight this year, 3 in conference tournament last year.
Yeah.
2 at the end of the regular season. I've got to believe that's the longest.
There's no way.
There's no way we won 15 straight conference games, including postseason, in school history. I'm sure Bill will help me out, and we'll get to the bottom of that soon. But there's no way. And then you had the stat a couple weeks ago. What are we in our last, like, what are we like? We won 15 straight. Then we lost that one game to Kennesaw at home. And then we had won 7 before that, maybe. So like 22-1 or something in our last 23 conference games.
They did win 11 in a row in season in the COVID year. The back-to-back. You remember playing a team Friday and Saturday night every week? How wild that was. So they won 11 in a row. Let's see. Did they start off? Okay, so I got it here because they kept winning the next year. So 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. They did win 16 in a row, 2021 into 2022. So that's probably I just can't imagine that. So that was 16. We're at 15 now.
We're at 15 now. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So this weekend, unofficially, the record.
It would be the unofficial, and it would also, we're at 12 games, so 14 overall win streak would also tie the longest win streak in school history. So, got an important week as far as these historical streaks go, if you're into that sort of thing.
Yeah, there's no way any of those Big South teams won 16 in a row. I feel like I would have remembered that. Yeah, I don't think that happened. So there was one 4-game run with Lair and one good season under Lair. Other than that, like, you have the McKay era and then a lot of like not good stuff. There's a few good seasons with Jeff Meyer back in the 90s that you can find some records there too. But once you get, before that 2018, 2019 team, there's a lot of dark years in Liberty College basketball history. So I'll say it again. So thankful for Coach McKay and what he's done to this program. Makes us even having this podcast, reasonable, or we would just be sitting here talking to ourselves, and that's no fun. Yeah. All right. Well, Dan, I see you in the chat. Enjoy your time at Delaware. Dan, a big friend of the program, always reminds us when we haven't done a podcast. Dan is like the guy. When I see Dan mention me, I'm like, all right, it's time. Let's get the bat signal going. So shout out to you, Dan. Enjoy the game in Delaware. Appreciate you always tuning in. All right. Well, for Jon Manson, I'm Nick Kirby. Check out Jason Porter Real Estate for all your residential and commercial real estate needs. John, you have to hit the outro.